Hello everybody, it's Wyvern here with another bit of Total War Warhammer 2 Quick Match gameplay to welcome in the new year. And this time around, it is a bit of Norsca against Empire on the Iron Sand Desert. Honestly, the only reason I'm running Norsca is because I felt like I really haven't played with the faction much lately. I've basically just ignored them and not really played them, and I feel like I haven't put up any gameplay of them on the channel, and I figured, you know what, maybe people would like to see some Norsca, and I haven't played them, and I wanted to see how well they play out, because I know there have been some complaints and whatnot about Norsca being a little underpowered or whatever. I want to give them a shot, see how they are, see if we can have some fun. So going against Empire and versus Norsca, a bit of a old school Warhammer 1 matchup. For my lord, I'm bringing good old Wulfric the Wanderer, so nothing fancy here. He is coming in on a horse, generally my favorite mount for him because it's safe and gives him some mobility and flexibility. You get Fight or Die, of course. We have Seafang, we have Foe Seeker, Hunter of Champions, Sword of Torgald, and I think I already mentioned Fight or Die, so pretty well kitted out to duel enemy lords if needed, otherwise to support the front line, to do some damage, dive into the back line on his horse, support the cavalry or pseudo-cavalry on the flanks, that sort of stuff. Alongside him we do have a Shaman Sorcerer of Metal, and he's coming in with, once again, a decent selection of spells. He does have the Searing Doom, he's got Plague of Rust, and Glittering Robe, and Glittering Robe is a spell I've been having more and more fun with lately. I found it to be surprisingly useful, getting that AoE armor. It's definitely nifty. Plague of Rust, mostly to synergize with Skin Wolves if my opponent brought Heavy Cav, which is very popular in this matchup. Searing Doom, of course, to destroy blobs of squishy infantry. Our front line is pretty cheap here because we've gone so heavy on the flanks. We've got 2 Marauder Champions and then 4 units of Marauders on the flanks. These guys are all Chevron up to Chevron 3, which puts their stats better than Empire Swordsmen. It means they probably will outtrade a unit of State Troops, especially like Spears, but even like Empire Swords in a straight-up fight. On the flanks, that's where our main hitting power is. We've got Skin Wolves with armor, as well as Norscan Ice Wolves on this flank. This prevents my opponent from running away if he has Heavy Cav, for example, and also lets me catch Light Cav, like Pistoliers even, or more importantly, Outriders. On this flank, we do have, once again, Norscan Ice Wolves. We've got some Beasts of Tashnar, and then the Maws of Savagery and more Skin Wolves with armor. So a really solid, sort of flexible pseudo-cavalry contingent. If my opponent has a bunch of infantry, they can still do a great job against those, but more importantly, they will perform really well against this sort of light cav, and potentially if had my opponent brought Knights of the Blazing Sun or units like that, they'd be good against those. Now for my opponent, he did bring a very campy sort of box here. For his lord, he did bring Boris Todbringer, who's looking for prey over here. He's fully kitted out, got everything to hold the line, got the White Cloak of Ulrich, he's got the Crush the Weak, Midland Runefang, Foe Seeker, and Deadly Onslaught. Alongside him, a Light Wizard with Net, Barona's Time Warp, Shem's Burning Gaze, the False Protection, Exorcism, which is probably a mistake, and then Power Stone. Exorcism was one of those things you'll often see people accidentally take. I do this myself sometimes. It just happens, and it's not what you want to do, but sometimes you just forget. For his front line, my opponent has a bunch of swordsmen, as well as Empire Spears with shields, basically just giving him a bunch of fodder to protect the peripheries, because he does have a lot of shooting. He's got 2 units of handguns, as well as the silver bullets here, and then he does have the Hammer of Witches, as well as the Sunmaker to provide some artillery support. On the flank over here, he does have a unit of Outriders as well, who are being chased currently by these very angry Beasts of Tashnar and Norscan Ice Wolves, and my opponent doesn't really have the tools to protect them here. He probably should have taken his Light Wizard and tried to either net these guys or pull the Outriders into his box, but he did not do so. Probably fixated more over here, whereas artillery is pounding my Marauder Champions. You can see these guys have already lost about 3,000 HP. These guys have lost another 1,300 or so, so really not good. The Maws of Savage are getting pounded by the handguns because I just let them sit too long for just a little bit too close to the handguns. But we are able to catch the Outriders, which is a nice early pick. 700 gold removed from the field for basically no cost. In the meantime, as we do close the gap, of course, the Sunmaker gets a lot less effective, as does the Hammer of Witches. My opponent didn't have too many targets for him, and as I maneuvered Wulfric out of the way, the Hammer of Witches kind of lost its targeting. In the meantime, we're going to dive in here with our Norscan Ice Wolves, looking to shut down the backline, and the Seafang here just jumping through these handgunners, completely dumpstering the unit and forcing them to rout. My opponent was using these boxes. Boxes are not necessarily bad for shooting because you can pivot faster, but because of that, they were very nicely set up for the Seafang to do a lot of hurt. In the meantime, here in the front line, the Marauders are slugging out with the Sigmar Suns. The Marauder Champs are just going to overwhelm these poor swordsmen. And unfortunately, though, my opponent here does juke the Searing Doom, but he is coming in for Wulfric. He does cast the Net of Mintok. I did try to get further away with Foe Seeker, but I'd already taken a volley from the handguns, and now we are in some big trouble. I do pop Sword of Trollgarth, trying to defend myself, hit Boris with the Hunter of Champions. Just doing everything I can to try to save Wulfric right now, but simple fact of the matter is my opponent got the jump on me, my wolves were out of position, and although they're trying to come in right now and help, it is too little too late. Wulfric is going to tear her out and be removed from play. He hasn't gotten standard die off this entire game. Perhaps I should have used it there, but what can you do? he hasn't really done that much of anything this game. He got that single Sea Fang, and that was it. That said, for my opponent, the game is looking bleak. We got a single unit of Norsca Ice Wolves into the back who immediately shattered the Sunmaker and pressured the Hammer Witches pretty heavily. Our light cav contingent from the other flank is coming in now as well. Over here, our Shaman Sorcerer is bogging down the center pocket, and the Skin Wolves are getting loosed. So, although my opponent has removed some of these peripheral troops, he's gotten rid of some of these Marauders. The simple fact of the matter is this tide of Norscan flesh is crashing through here. We've got Glittering Robe going on these Marauder champions, giving them 140 armor, making them very respectable. And now the puppies are in on the Hammer Witches, shutting it down and taking it offline. With the Marauder champs following up, my opponent is going to be without artillery in just a few short seconds. He did manage to pound mine with Models of Savagery, unfortunately a whole bunch, taking off entire models with that focus fire. He also is able to remove Wolfric from play with his Light Wizard, so very well played there. But we are able to overwhelm the infantry line, and now with our Norscan mobility, Norscans have 35 speed, the 31-ish, I think, on Empire, 30 speed on the Empire infantry, 33 on the shooting. So the Marauder infantry is going to be able to run down the fleeing Empire troops. In the meantime, we are able to dive in here, surround the spears, start buckling this line. We've got the surrounding here with the Norscan Ice Wolves. Now these guys are large, so they're going to be taking bonus damage from the spearmen, but, you know, at this point, we're just trying to break pocket after pocket and remove my troops from play. Basically, my opponent's lost all of his shooting. We're pursuing them from play with the Marauders over here, leaving the Marauder champs into the fray here to just butcher the infantry that's still fighting. Over here, we've got these Marauders fighting it out with the Sigmar Sons, with a little bit of help from the Armored Skin Wolves, who are doing quite a number on the Silver Bullets. On this flank, in the meantime, these poor handguns did get caught out by these Marauders, and so they themselves are going to get cut down in short order. And because of that, my opponent has essentially lost the flanks at this point. This game is kind of snowballing out of control for him. He does still have a few troops that could potentially rally. He does still have this pocket of spears here, but we are dropping a Searing Doom on these guys. We can watch as it bombards these poor state troops who are bogged down here against the Marauders, just destroying them, taking thousands of HP off them. Searing Doom, really not a joke. It's a pretty solid spell. I really would recommend it if you're fighting factions with lots of squishy units that tend to blob up. It can work. So they're removed from play over here. My opponent is trying to save his handguns with Boris, but too little too late. Once again, the handguns removed by the Marauders there. The Boris is going to do a little bit of damage there, but really they're Marauders, so who cares? And they are chevron up a little bit, so their leadership is not the worst. If we look at their leadership real quick, we can actually see it's being buffed right now by Rage, which is also helping. So they're sitting at base 60, and they've got with chevrons and all that sort of stuff. They're doing pretty well, and they're now able to shift over onto these spears, start running through them, doing quite a bit of work. The spears, of course, will not be able to hold. And in the meantime, we've got our running goon squad here coming in on Boris, trying to catch him before he does take off, because if he's able to extricate himself, he is attacking the Marauders right now, but if he gets away from them, he's going to escape me. I do pull my Sorcerer back at the last moment, not wanting to fight Boris. The Models of Savagery are the first into the fight, which is really important because they're going to be doing the most damage here. But I do make sure to get the wrap around with the Beasts of Tashnar so that they can use their bonus Rishlar to start cutting and Boris down, and more importantly, keeping him tied down in place. And with Plague of Rust going down, he is not going to hold very long at all. If we look at the overarching view here, we can't see my opponent here, bogging down my Skin Wolves with the Lightcaster. I don't know why the Skin Wolves lost the track of these guys. I think these guys might have gone into stalk at the last second. But the Skin Wolves here getting bogged down by the Lightcaster. In the meantime, over here, the Sigmar Sons finally being removed from play as we've got our Norscan Ice Wolves running ham in the backline, picking off units. Over here, the Marauders did manage to finally take down the handguns and are now shifting to deal with these swordsmen. So my opponent at this point reduced to just the Light Wizard. And a few Silver Bullets here. The Skin Wolves, though, do get their charge off, which means they're going to get in here and start munching on these poor Sigmar, on these poor Silver Bullets, not Sigmar Sons. Just look at them, just getting slapped around by those massive monstrosities. Skin Wolves are huge. One of the funny things, though, is that I think Orc Big Guns are actually just about as big as these guys, which is pretty hilarious. They are wavering. Had my opponent been a little quicker on getting a recharge with the Light Wizard, he might have been able to break them, but it doesn't matter at this point, as my opponent's army shatters with the loss of the Sigmar Sons there, removing the only unbreakable unit on the field for him. So, a fun match there with Norsca, where I kind of misplayed and lost Wolfric early on, but just a little bit of fun with Norsca. Norsca's a fun faction. I think there's a lot of potential. I think the faction does have some issues. I think they've got some weaknesses against certain things. They do struggle a little bit against Fear and Terror, not as much as, say, Beastmen, or maybe more than Greenskins, I would say. But they do struggle a bit more with Fear and Terror. Definitely not as bad as Beastmen, but they can be an issue for them. They do struggle a little bit with dealing with heavy cav and if your opponent knows what they're doing. Obviously, if you bring Fimir, you can generally shut them down if your opponent isn't exactly on point, but they generally kind of struggle a little bit with heavy cav, and massive skirmishers can be an issue for them. But by and large, I do find Norse can be pretty fun. They're definitely not bad. The lord choices are all right. Wolfric is a lot of fun. I kind of screwed up in this game, got him sniped by Boris, which is just, you shouldn't be losing Wolfric to Boris. Boris isn't really a lord sniper. He's okay. He's got AP. He's got a charge on the Griffin, but really, it shouldn't be happening. Had I been more on point, had my wolves been in position to intercept Boris, that would have gone very differently. But they weren't, and so that is what it is. Councilor of Battle didn't really show here with the kill count, but honestly, he did a lot of work. The debuffs, the bombardments, the buffs, doing a huge amount of damage to my opponent's army. The Marauder spam with the Marauder champions, very good against Empire. If they bring great swords, you'll have a little bit of issues, but that's what we've got the debuffs from the Sorcerer from. That's what you've got your Skin Wolves for. I do believe Marauder champions will actually beat Empire great swords in a straight up fight. They'll scrape out a win just barely, I think, but as their rage kicks in with physical resist, they do well there. Beasts of Dashnar, Norse Consuls, all very good units, and they're just great at running it on light cav and keeping enemy heavy cav from fleeing. And then Skin Wolves doing some good work. Obviously, some of them were spent more of the game chasing after Boris and that sort of stuff, so they didn't get to rake in the kills, but that is what it is. For my opponent's build, my main critique here would be that it was very narrow. You can go with an infantry. I have done actually all infantry builds, I think, against Norsca before. It is doable, but it's not something I would recommend. I think that you're better off bringing heavy cav. I think Knights of the Blazing Sun are very good in this matchup because they get a bonus with fire damage against Skin Wolves with armor. Plus, they're resistant to magic damage. Oftentimes, you'll see Norsca bring Lore of Death, which is really nice, or for that matter, Final Transmutation. And the cool thing about Knights of the Blazing Sun is that 25% magic resist is just enough to prevent Spirit Leech or Final Transmutation from killing entire models, which is significant. It means you can heal the unit back up. It means that your opponent might get massive damage still because it's going to be like 100 damage a tick, but it's not taking entire models off, which means you're not losing that much efficiency damage-wise, which is pretty awesome. That's why I really like Knights of the Blazing Sun in this matchup. Navigators you don't really need, but I do think that you want heavy cav, and I personally prefer heavy cav to artillery. I just don't think a unit like Hammer of Witches or the Sunmaker is really going to deliver here. I think 2 units of Knights of the Blazing Sun would have made a much bigger difference in this matchup than the 2 units of artillery. They would have been able to kind of contest the Skin Wolves, especially with some help from magic from the Light Wizard. Personally, I prefer a different alternate caster in this situation, but honestly, the Light Wizard's not bad. He can work, and they could definitely perform amazing against the infantry. Just run them down. The Light Cav wouldn't stand a chance against Knights of Blazing Sun, and it would leave you. You'd still have a solid core of shooting. So that would be my personal suggestion. But regardless, well played to Free Chicken here. I do hope you guys enjoyed the video. Hope you found it entertaining. Hope you all had a great New Year. If you have any comments, any criticism, as usual, don't hesitate to post them, and I will see you all in the next one. Wyvern out.